Zach, we are back and we are talking moves to make or moves to possibly not make. We're going to be running through real life trades that have happened in the Dynasty Ether. I'm sending aside, you're sending aside. We're going to talk about if these are moves to make or not for either side and maybe fix some trades along the way. We're going to give you the league formatting, all the picks involved, all the players involved, talk some players we like, players we maybe like a little bit less. And like I said, maybe fix some trades using our mock trades concept if we don't like the values as they are. But before we get into it, please like the video if you enjoy it. Comment down below some moves you're trying to make at this moment. And if you want to make more moves with us, head on over to patreon.com/DynastyRewind. Get in that Discord server for a free 7-day trial and see what we can do to fix your Dynasty roster before the season kicks off. There's other ways to do it too. If you want to check out a roster review option from myself or Zach, check out that option in the pinned comment below or the YouTube description box. But Zach, with all that said, all the promo in the books, let's get to the content that the people came for. This first trade here, I'm sending you Marvin Harrison Jr. You're sending me in return Malik Neighbors plus a 25 first plus a 26 third in this Superflex 12-team PPR 0.75 tight end premium start 10 league. Zach, is this a move you're making or not? Tell me about it. Let's fix up this trade if we have to.
No, I'm not making this move. I get it in terms of the value because that's probably what it would take, but it's not a move I'm willing to make. First of all, it's a start 10. Start 10 is like the border where I start to consider the league a little bit deeper, although start 11 is really like your deeper leagues. But start 10, 12 teams, start 10, that's 120 players that we need just to have starting. So I'm not moving 3 pieces for 1, even if they're kind of sprinkled over the next 2 years. I prefer to keep my Malik Neighbors and my 2 other pieces. Probably doesn't make me better in the short term, but I think it makes me better in the long term, especially if I'm able to allocate those draft picks to either rookies or veteran players in those years. So no, I'm not making this move. You probably would need to send more than what I'm willing to send to get to Malik Neighbors to Marvin Harrison. But I mean, I don't even like maybe Malik Neighbors and a second to get me to Marvin Harrison. And I get it that in startups there's a little bit of a gap between those two, but in reality, there's not. They were drafted very close together in the NFL draft, albeit different situations. It's negligible, the difference in their talent. I think everybody has Marvin Harrison pegged better, but there was a lot of talk that Malik Neighbors in some front office's eyes was just as good. So I'm not willing to do this. And I get everybody's panicking about the Giants quarterback situation. That's a 1-year way to look at things. And who knows what their quarterback situation is next year in 2025. It could be just as good as Kyler Murray. It could be better. We don't know. So I'm not going to panic on that. I'm not going to make a panic move. I'm not going to give 3 assets, including another first-round pick, to get from Malik Neighbors to Marvin Harrison.
I'm with you. I'd love to tear down, quote unquote, to Malik Neighbors and get all this back. But factually, I just don't think this is a trade that gets done in a lot of leagues or should be done. Just talking with you pre-show, this one just doesn't make sense to me schematically. I don't think they're this far apart. Like you touch on, if it was a 1 quarterback league where that 25 first could be netting me just another positional player, maybe I'm a little less, hesitant to send that first with it. But I think for me, a concept I came up with was me sending Marvin Harrison Jr. plus a second for Malik Neighbors and a first. I think that's something a lot closer to a decent value. Maybe there's some fab thrown in there, Zach, to smooth things over a little bit. But I think that's a little bit more if you're trying to, pivot between either way with these 2 players that I think are ultimately pretty close. Obviously, I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is a lot better situated for this season because of the quarterback situation we have. Maybe Daniel Jones can catch some of that, 2022 magic he had with Brian Daboll. I'm not going to, bank on it at this point. I just don't think he's that good of a quarterback. All the rumors that were swirling about them possibly being in on a quarterback early in this draft obviously didn't come to fruition, but, it's obviously concerning where that quarterback room is going. But I think that's kind of where I'd be at. If we were going to make some sort of pivot, I think I like that one best. Marvin a second for Malik Neighbors and a first. Does that sound fair to you, Zach?
Yeah, that does sound a little bit more fair. Again, start 10, giving away, you're basically losing 2 assets when you're doing a 3 for 1. At least in that, it's 2 for 2. I'm dropping back in my first round pick into a second round pick next year, but I am jumping up in terms of the talent and the value from Malik Neighbors to Marvin Harrison. So I think that is a much more fair deal.
Moving on into our second deal, we have kind of a similar conversation I think we're going to have with this deal. In this one, I'm sending your Miami Dolphins, Jalen Waddle, plus a 25 first, plus a 25 third. You're sending back Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm going all out for this running back. However, I have issues with it because it's a super flex league, 12 team, 0.5 PPR, 1.5 tight end premium, which is mind-bogglingly, that's crazy points for tight end premium. And then it is a start 9 league as well. So while I get we want to consolidate in a start 9, it's a much smaller, positional starters where it's, running backs, wide receivers, much less of those going around. You want to get your top flight guys in those spots. Jahmyr Gibbs with a 0.5 PPR is kind of, all of the value he gets with receptions and whatnot just kind of gets a little mute, where it's just, it's not as powerful of a format for him. So I have issues with that. I'd rather stay with the package I have here, Zach. So no chance I'm doing this. This is not a move to make. Another deal where I just lose 3 assets. Yes, I don't hate the concept of going to Gibbs, but this is, again, one where it's probably, like you first mentioned, Jalen Waddle plus a second for me is probably more in the realm of where I'm at in this deal. Zach, where are you at value-wise? What do you think about that? What do you think about this deal overall?
I don't know if I'd take Jalen Waddle in a second. Maybe we could change Jalen Waddle. Maybe I could just tear down at running back. If you want to figure out who that is, you let me know. Just on face value of the deal alone, Jalen Waddle first and a third for Jahmyr Gibbs in a start 9. I'll take that all day. You bet your bottom dollar I'll be taking that, Bob. But I can see what you're totally saying. It is a start 9, which is a little bit less than a start 10, as we mentioned in our Marvin Harrison Malik Neighbors trade. So maybe it makes a little bit of sense to consolidate assets there. Maybe that's what you're trying to do. But if we were trying to say tear down from Jahmyr Gibbs, what about if you sent me Kyren Williams in a second round pick?
That was what I was kind of looking at. I don't, I think it kind of is worthwhile because with any question marks that are going around with Kyren Williams, whether it be health, whether it be what's going on with Blake Corum in this offense, how that all gets distributed, you get to shed all of that. And Jahmyr Gibbs is good. He has a first round investment in draft capital. He is going to maintain his role in that offense, if not grow in his role in that offense. I think I'm much more palatable with that deal to upgrade my running back. I still don't love it. Maybe, I don't hate it, but I have high hopes for Kyren. So it's not like I'm sure that's a deal that would be thrown to the wind and just say, yes, please, good God, take Kyren in a second for Jahmyr Gibbs. But, I like having my picks, but I think that is a deal I would consider for sure. Let's talk about if I want to just add this running back instead of, so do you want a better receiver than Jalen Waddle, or what do you want out of that position, out of that piece?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd either like to tear down at running back or a different wide receiver other than Jalen Waddle. If I'm moving off of a top 3 running back, I need a team's wide receiver 1.
Okay. How do you feel about Nico Collins?
That's exactly where my head was at.
Okay. All right. So are you thinking Nico Collins and a second for Gibbs, or Nico? What are you thinking on that deal?
Yeah, I mean, if I could get that deal, I would instant smash. I'm not sure if somebody would send that. If they sent Nico on a third, I'd smash.
Really?
Yeah, because just the shelf life of the position. Nico just got a contract extension. Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to look. He's a first round pick, but David Montgomery's there, and after David Montgomery's not there, somebody else will be. It's never going to be the Jahmyr Gibbs show. It's just not how they've ever run their offense. When in the last 3 years of the Dan Campbell led Lions has there been a singular running back leading the attack? And it's just not the way the offense is built. Yes, Jahmyr Gibbs will have opportunity and touches, and he is a great talent. And that's why his value is what it is in that situation. But he will never be the only guy in that backfield. Nico Collins, tethered to C.J. Stroud for the foreseeable future. I value wide receiver much more than I value running back. I feel like I can get 60 to 70% of the production of a Jahmyr Gibbs in a Brian Robinson, in somebody else that you're just not really thinking about at this point. Meanwhile, it's very hard to find wide receiver production if it's not a top tier wide receiver. So I would even take as low as Nico Collins and a third. But if you're sending me Nico Collins and a second, I happily accept.
I think the second need is what's needed to get it done. And I think a big thing that like we touched on, or like I mentioned already, being the 0.5 PPR, that, hamstrings Gibbs what his strongest asset is, which is his receiving prowess, so that's something to consider, I think, with this deal, especially, although it, also hampers the wideouts. But, like you said, the longevity comes into play. You have high hopes for Nico. I do as well. Speaking of Nico Collins, he's in this next deal as well. Are we still making a similar deal here? I am sending Travis Etienne in this deal, so we're trying to flip-flop positions here. I'm sending Travis Etienne. You're sending Nico Collins, excuse me. The Superflex 12-team PPR 0.75 tight end premium. We got a bunch of like big boy tight end premiums today. I don't know what the deal is, but it is what it is. And it's a start 11 league. So I'm sending Travis Etienne. You're sending Nico Collins. Zach, how do you feel about this deal?
I don't love it. I don't love giving up Nico Collins for Travis Etienne. We just talked about the positional value. But, again, I got to look at the security of the players. Nico Collins just signed a contract extension. He is locked and loaded in that offense and will be locked and loaded with CJ Stroud for quite a few years. Travis Etienne, I believe, is going into year number 4 of a rookie deal. Correct me if I'm mistaken there. I think this is where we are.
Travis Etienne?
Yes, we are entering the 4th year of his rookie deal. He was a first-round pick, so they can extend that 5th year. We have heard absolutely nothing about that. And even so, you get maybe 2 years of security at that position. Who knows what happens after? Just the positional security of Nico Collins over Travis Etienne, I'll take any day. I don't see Travis Etienne having another top 3 or 5 running back season, whatever he was last year. I'll take Nico Collins. He's safe. He's secure in this offense. I don't care about Stephon Diggs and everybody else there. Nico Collins is the wide receiver 1. So I'll take that in a start 11 all day long.
Yeah, I think this one might be tough to get a deal done in because I do have rather high hopes for Etienne, and I do think that Stephon Diggs does play a role at least this year with kind of hampering Nico. And I think while a lot of us are excited for Nico and should be, he just had a great year, showed off his route running ability, showed off his playmaking ability, all of the things. Stephon Diggs is coming to town, and one thing I've learned diving into some projections for this year, when alpha wide receivers come to town, they tend to stay alpha wide receivers when they get to that new town. And Nico wasn't last year, as much as we love Nico and what he did last year, he didn't put together an alpha type target share. And that's the one thing that I think hamstrings his production this year. Long term, different discussion. I think that very different players. Travis Etienne is going to get all the work this year in a PPR format, going to get a good bit of receiving work despite that offense being a little crowded in terms of receiving targets. I don't think I want to pivot down to Nico Collins straight up. I think depending on what I'm looking to do, that also plays a role. If I'm just looking to play the long game and playoff longevity, I think I should be able to move off of Travis Etienne for Nico plus, for Nico in a second. And maybe I don't get that from you, Zach, because you just value Etienne differently. But if a team is looking to get Travis Etienne off of me at the cost of Nico Collins, I'm trying to get more on top of Nico Collins. Maybe it's not a second because we just basically said that Nico plus a second equals Jahmyr Gibbs. Travis Etienne doesn't equal Jahmyr Gibbs. So maybe it's closer to a third, pair of thirds. Maybe there's a 2-3 swap in there, something along those lines. So I'm still in on Etienne. I don't think I'd move him straight up for Nico Collins. So it's a move to not make for me and for you as well. So this is a tough one to kind of try to find bones for. If you're moving off Nico Collins, not naming a running back named Kyren Williams, Zach, who's a running back you're looking to go get? If you're not looking to go get Nico, is it somebody like, if you're not looking to get Kyren, is it somebody like Devon Etienne, Saquon Barkley? Are those guys good enough? Are you looking to maybe pay up to go get a Jonathan Taylor? Something along those lines. Are you looking to add on into that for maybe some more secure production?
Do I have to?
You don't have to. We don't have to complete the deal.
That's just not my process. Like I follow what the NFL tells me, and the NFL tells me not to value running backs to value wide receivers. Look at the wide receiver contracts. They're upwards of $30 million per season at this point. 35 was it Justin Jefferson? They got 35, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, like running backs are getting what, $8 million, $9 million. Like last year they got years. They got 3-4 years, but guaranteed money wasn't all that much. Look at your boy in Green Bay, Josh Jacobs got 13 million guaranteed. Look at the contracts. What the NFL is telling me, I would prefer really not to move off Nico Collins for a running back unless I'm getting equal or greater value. And look, Travis Etienne is very much equal. I looked it up on DLF. Their ADP, their ranks are very, very close.
Okay.
So they're very similar. But I think the person offering that deal, whomever it is, because we follow this rule of we're not doing 1-for-1. You're just telling me you value my guy more. Whoever's offering that deal has to offer a little bit more than a 1-for-1. Maybe add a 3rd-round pick on one end, something like you said. But I just don't know like who I'd want to move Nico Collins for as a running back and feel good about it. Like if it's not Breece Hall, if it's not Bijan Robinson, and if it's not Jahmyr Gibbs, one of these three, there's 3 or 4 top running backs, even CMC, that are locked in because of draft capital or because of contract situations. I don't want to move off Nico Collins for that. Maybe his production takes a dip this year, or maybe that offense takes a step forward from where they were last year, and they become a better offense with more volume, with more points, with more whatever. And so I just would prefer to stick with Nico Collins. But like I said, if I have to choose and if I have to get a running back to move for Nico Collins, I'm doing everything in my power to get one of those top 3 or 4 running backs that's just secure in one of their positions. Jonathan Taylor is great, but his last 2 years have been miserable, and you have hated owning him in fantasy. So there's just no running back that I feel all that good about if I'm trying to move off Nico Collins in reality.
Yeah, I can't fault you one bit there, Zach. I do think, 100% too, if you're sending this deal, send it with a difference in valuation. And, the valuation difference could be that, hey, I'm just trying to sort out my running back. You're just trying to sort out your wide receiver. Let's swap here. They're similar values. I'm okay with that. But yeah, definitely since they're so close, which I tend to agree with, try to get a little sprinkling on top. The 1-for-1 is much less exciting for me. So I guess this is a deal we're just not going to get done because we just don't agree necessarily on, the formatting of the deal. And I think that's A-okay. But with that said, we'll move on to this next one. Zach, I'm trying to get Dalton Kincaid from you. I'm sending you, for some reason, Michael Pittman and a 25 first. Feels rich to me, although it is a super flex 12-team PPR 0.75 tight end premium start 10 lineups. Michael Pittman and a 25 first feels rich. Michael Pittman and a 25 second feels better to me. Honestly, Zach, how do you feel about this deal? Is this one you're making? I know you like Michael Pittman, so that's a win for me in this win column. But what do you think about this deal? Is this a move you're making? Is this a pivot you're making? Do you have a tight end kicking around that you can, work with that isn't Dalton Kincaid that you feel confident enough to move off of? Or
0.75 premium is really where I start to value the tight ends quite a bit. Sure, maybe you feel that Michael Pittman in a 25 first is too much, but I feel like Michael Pittman in a second is too little. So instead of giving me a second, why don't we keep the deal the same on your end, and I'll add a 2nd-round pick? Kind of the same that we made earlier with the Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison. I'll give you Dalton Kincaid in a second. You give me Michael Pittman and a first. It's got to be juicy to get me off that 1.75 points per reception for a tight end, especially when the projections, which you are doing, Bob, you can attest to this, project Dalton Kincaid doing pretty darn good this season in Buffalo.
Yeah. No, he is projected to do pretty darn good. He's projected for top 3 tight end numbers. Spoiler alert. I'm not done with my projections yet, but early signs for Dalton Kincaid are good. About halfway through the league. So yeah, I think I could palate that. Again, it's tough because I think Michael Pittman and Dalton Kincaid in a nutshell are close. And a 25 first, 25 second, obviously not close. We know that. Because there's a 1 in front of one of those.
Are they close when Dalton Kincaid gets 0.75 points extra per reception?
I mean, I don't think they're that far off, but man, maybe they are, I guess. But yeah, I guess I could stomach that. with Michael Pittman and 25 first for Dalton Kincaid in a second. I think I could do that because I want to get all the Dalton Kincaid, man. Because he's already. I mean, there's no buying low on him anymore. He's already valued pretty highly until he outproduces Sam Laporta this year. Well, boy, did I just say that? That might be scary. I don't actually know that for sure, but you have to consider Sam Laporta had a very high touchdown rate last year, which is possibly going to come down. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to say that Dalton Kincaid's going to outproduce, but we have 3 tight ends at the top right now. It's Dalton Kincaid, it's Trey McBride, and then at the top of the mountain, it's Sam Laporta. So I don't hate this deal. Like I said, it's maybe more sticker shock. And then when you peel it back, it's not that bad. It's one of those deals you have to take another look at. So I don't hate that. Michael Pittman and 25 first for Dalton Kincaid and a 25 second. Zach, do we have a deal on that one?
Yes, we do. And by the way, that description of I can stomach that's when it's a fair trade. Like that's when the trade works for both sides, because every trade, both sides should feel like they're winning and kind of losing a little bit. Yeah. If you're getting, and look, we've all done it. We've all smashed trades and we're like, wow, what an amazing deal. And when you're saying that because you feel like the other person on the other side undersold. So when you say something like that, Bob, it's because it's a pretty fair deal both ways. And sometimes I get it, as dynasty owners, we want to just win every trade, but that's unrealistic. And we've talked about this before. Like if that's your mentality and getting trades done, you're going to miss out on a lot of potential value in certain aspects. So that feeling where it's like, I should do this, but I can't. That's how it should feel. Remember last year when we were talking, I got a deal offer for Kyron when he was injured, and it was Aaron Jones and something else. And I was like, dude, like I can't really afford this right now because Kyron's hurt. I need a running back. And you're like, do it, man. And remember, I was like, I don't know, man. And I think I traded, this was a one quarterback. It was like Brock Purdy, Aaron Jones, and something else for Kyron Williams. And I won a championship. And that's exactly how you should feel when a trade is even and works for both sides.
Yeah, 100%. If you are going into a trade trying to win it for yourself and yourself alone, you'll make a heck of a lot less trades. And that's one of the big barriers to getting trades done, is being too concerned about winning. With this one, yes, I lose out on Michael Pittman's solid wide receiver 2 production with some upside, and obviously a 25 first, but I get a locked and loaded Dalton Kincaid, what I project to be a top 5 tight end for a long time, and I get a second round pick back, so I get to maintain some of my draft capital. Don't hate it, don't love it, but hey, if I'm already pretty deep or feel pretty good about my wide receiver room, I probably don't feel as good about my tight end room. This is a move I do like making at the end of the day. But moving on to the next one here, second to last deal. I'm trying to climb the mountain again, going after another very pricey wide receiver here. I'm sending Zay Flowers and DeVonta Smith for Zach's sending of Garrett Wilson. It's a super flex 12-team PPR, 1 tight end premium, start 10 league. Zach, what do you think about this one? Is my Zay Flowers and DeVonta Smith enough to get you to move off of the overrated Garrett Wilson, who everybody ranks too high in dynasty rankings? That is sarcasm, by the way. Just some going off of things I've heard in the ethos of Garrett Wilson. And hey, I get it. He's had a lot of opportunity, not done a lot with it. But, the targets have come when the quarterback play has been terrible. And especially when you compare him to other players, he still produced pretty decent numbers overall, but definitely not the breakout that, the top 10 dynasty wide receiver value that he's valued at. But either way, Zach, how do you feel about this deal? Is Zay Flowers and DeVonta Smith enough for Garrett Wilson? He's a little shy of value. What do you think?
It's probably enough for Garrett Wilson, but I don't want to do this. Don't want to do this, man. I don't. It feels wrong because it's a good deal, and I'm getting 2 wide receivers for 1 to start 10. I can fill 2 spots with that. Garrett Wilson could have another year. Look, Garrett Wilson is one of the players that I just excuse for whatever's happened, because his quarterbacks the last 2 years, they have like a 53% completion percentage. It has nothing to do with Garrett Wilson. So, there's got to be a little context when you talk about that. I don't want to do that. The ceiling that Garrett Wilson still has, you've seen him make plays when given the. It's not like they're throwing the ball to Garrett Wilson and he's not catching it. That's just not happening. they're just like they're not able to throw it to him because it's a non-functioning offense. Like Zach Wilson is getting concussed in the backfield, then Tim Boyle is getting concussed in the backfield. Now they've got, Aaron Rodgers is snapping his Achilles in 4 plays. It's not been Garrett Wilson's fault for his lack of production. He can't throw it to himself and catch it. I don't want to do this. I don't have much more to say on this other than I feel dumb saying it because it is a good deal. You're offering me 2 wide receivers that probably don't have anywhere near as high of a ceiling as Garrett Wilson, but are a little bit safer in their production. Devonta Smith, any year could finish higher than Garrett Wilson, but I just want the player with the incredibly high ceiling here. And when I'm selling off an asset like Garrett Wilson, I don't want to do it for, I'm selling off the dollar for 2 50-cent tokens, if that makes any sense. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do that here. Or how about I don't want to sell $1 and get 4 quarters. Like I don't want to do that. If I'm selling the dollar, I want to get $1.50. And I know we just talked about, hey, both sides should feel like they want it. Yeah, but this is a premium dynasty asset. Like you said, ranked very high in rankings, and nothing that's happened to him, in my opinion, and his lack of production is his fault. So I just don't want to do this. I don't want to get 2 nice pieces for the possibility of an elite piece. Like I would view this the same as selling Marvin Harrison for Zay Flowers and Devonta Smith. Like I just don't want to do that. Sure. And if you look at startup drafts, that's where Marvin Harrison is going, right around where Garrett Wilson is going. So I don't want to do that. Like I don't have any other way to break it down here, Bob, other than I don't want to do this deal. I would need a primo wide receiver back, a tier down from Garrett Wilson. And it's hard to do that because where Garrett Wilson is going in startup drafts is kind of the end of the primo wide receiver tier, right? Like how much further is AJ Brown? AJ Brown's probably before Garrett Wilson in startup drafts.
He is. Yeah.
So like, I don't know if there's going to be a deal done here. Maybe we can move off to a different position, but I think you're understanding what I'm saying, but I just don't want to move off Garrett Wilson for safety and security, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, I don't hate that one bit. Just to put it into perspective here, out of Garrett Wilson's 168 targets last year, only 114 were deemed catchable. He did manage to pull in 83% of those. Not a bad rate, but when you're just not getting the ball thrown accurately to you, it's just hard to imagine what you could do. I think your best bet, Zach, is going to be to go across positions, but even then, Garrett Wilson, if you really want a top-tier primo asset, Garrett Wilson's just kind of on the tail end of what you're getting. Maybe the move to make for if you're pivoting off Garrett Wilson, if you are trying to compete, and I think one reason to avoid selling is, and I talked about this with Drake London last week, one of the reasons I don't really want to move off those guys is because the elite upside is still there and it's just untapped and they're not really being evaluated like that at this point. But maybe the move to make with Garrett Wilson, if you get one of those wide receivers, is moving down to like a Christian McCaffrey. Go get him for a season and pile on one of those wideouts. I don't know if you get all of that back in return. Maybe you get one of those wideouts. Maybe you have to send a pick with Garrett Wilson to get that done. I'm not sure, but maybe that's a similar move to make where you get some elite producing asset and then something for the long haul too, to kind of make up for moving off of a young up and coming asset in Garrett Wilson. You get another young and up and coming asset in Zay Flowers. You also get a primo producer in a Christian McCaffrey. Maybe that's the move. Maybe that's some sort of pivot you could look to make if you happen to be moving off of Garrett Wilson or something of that sort and you want to remain competitive and keep value on your roster for the long haul. Zach, is that something you think is worth a consideration if somebody's willing to move off McCaffrey to go get Garrett Wilson, maybe move off a younger wideout too, to give up that elite production now for possibly something more later, and maybe a second round pick with Garrett Wilson? That feels like maybe a lot, but if you're trying to compete, it might be a later second anyway. So if you're adding Christian McCaffrey, you're definitely competing. You almost don't need much more else than Christian McCaffrey, but is that something palatable for you, Zach?
Yes. That's what I like I said, I don't want to trade off a player that has that ceiling to be, though he can be a wide receiver 1. That is completely in the realm of possibility. I don't want to move off that for guys who their ceiling is like wide receiver 10, wide receiver 15. that just doesn't make me feel good about the ceiling of my team. And so to get a player like Christian McCaffrey, who in his own right can be a running back one and has been a running back one, that's more of a deal that I would look into. Yeah.
Love it, Zach. We'll move into our final one here. I'm going after my hometown quarterback in Jordan Love. I'm sending Mark Andrews plus 25 first to go and get it. Superflex 12-team PPR start 10 format. No tight end premium in this one. First one without tight end premium today. Don't know what I was on when I was looking for these real life trades that have been completed out in the ethos, by the way. So all these trades have been completed. You can rip on them if you want, but they've happened in real life. We're just trying to fix them and sort them up in ways we like. So I'm sending Mark Andrews in a 25 first for Jordan Love, and I can't imagine you're real in on this deal, Zach. What are your thoughts?
No. Yeah. No way. Jordan Love is a first-round starter pick at this point. And that's not going to go anywhere because he's either going to get a contract extension soon, which I'm hearing the Packers want to get that done before the Dolphins do Tua and the Cowboys do Dak. Or next offseason. And so that's not going to change. Jordan Love being a first-round pick, maybe top 15, but I just don't see that changing. No, I don't want to do this for a tight end in a non-tight end premium league and a quarterback. What, like, the other thing to consider, too, is, okay, I'm getting a first-round pick back, but I'm sending them a top 12 startup pick. So that first-round pick is maybe mid to late at this point. So how do I replace that quarterback in a Superflex league? Absolutely not. To me, to even entertain this deal, I would need to talk about tearing down at the quarterback. Like, to send a quarterback in a Superflex league and not get one back, there is a tax on that. There is an invisible tax that does not exist on trade calculators. If I was to make a trade calculator, Bob, mark this down, write this down. My trade calculator has a button to press if you're in a Superflex league and you are not getting a quarterback back. That costs you more money. That is ridiculous.
It's a 25% upcharge.
Yeah, 100%. 100% for the value of quarterbacks in a Superflex league to not get one back. Oh my goodness. And I'm somebody too that when somebody offers me a trade like that, I explain that. I'm like, excuse me, you're asking for a quarterback and not giving me one back. That cost you. That is a tax, man. That is a tax. I can see the comment section already going off on this. I'm okay with that. Let me know what you think about that. I'm a believer. There is a quarterback tax if I'm not getting one back in a trade. So no, I'm not making this deal. I need to tear down to a quarterback. What if I asked for this? What if I asked for this?
I'm listening.
My ears are open. I'm completely spitballing here. Completely. Okay. This is a non-tight end premium league. I'm going to change that first-round pick to a second-round pick. I'm going to keep Mark Andrews, and I'm going to ask for Bo Nix.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I don't hate that. I don't hate that idea at all. I was going to clap back with, instead of the first, putting on Jared Goff instead of the first-round pick. So Jordan Love for Jared Goff and a Mark Andrews.
100%
I like that deal, too, going a little deeper at the quarterback position, keeping a pick in there. I don't hate that concept either, Zach. I
like both of those trades, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, I'm okay with either one. I think either of them are good enough values to kind of get you going. And I would pay that for Jordan Love, and I understand that I have to pay the tax because I'm a Packers fan, and if you know your league and you're selling to a Packers fan, that's another tax you could probably add into your Zach's trade calculator of that's an upcharge. That's a hometown or favorite, fandom quarterback.
Nah, I don't tax that, man.
10%, just something small, nothing crazy.
We're good. Man.
But yeah, I like that deal a good bit as well. Either of those I'm happy with. So moving Mark Andrews plus a 25 second plus Bo Nix for Jordan Love gets it done for you. And then Mark Andrews plus Jared Goff for Jordan Love gets it done for you as well.
Yeah, those are two great deals. I love that we both came up with solid deals there.
Hey, that's what I'm trying to do, man. Because, I figured the quarterback hiccup, it'd be the same thing for me. If I'm not getting a quarterback back, I'd probably personally prefer the Jared Goff deal more between those deals if I had to pick one. But maybe I'm trying to get that much younger. And if I'm trying to get that much younger, maybe Mark Andrews isn't the target for me. Maybe I'd rather go get a TJ Hawkinson. Might cost a bit more. Might have to throw something back on my end to give some tight end value back. But it's probably not as much consequence as, Mark Andrews. This is probably a, barely a top 12 tight end kind of a thing in the throwback. So either way, I like the deals we made here today, Zach, and I hope y'all did at home too. Leave a like if you did. Comment down below what you thought of these deals. Tell us what deals you're looking to make. And if you want to make that many more deals with us, check out the patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind Discord server. Get in for a free 7-day trial. And if you want to make even more moves, check out the roster review option in the pinned comment or the YouTube description below, where Zach or I will review your team and get it on the right track for the future, for now, and forever. But with that said, Zach and I are going to get the heck out of here. We'll see you in the next one. But until then, I hope that y'all have a good one.